So there's so many different paths that a person can take. And my path, as Karen said, had a lot of different threads. And eventually it was the invitation of a priest that made me take it seriously. And it was my own dad that kicked me in the butt and said, you ought to go to that vocation discernment weekend, because I kept chickening out. I kept not going. And then he finally said, you should just go. And I went, and it was really good. And it led to me entering seminary. And then after I got there, I was like, why did I wait so long? This is really good. And seminary was a good experience. And so one of the things that made it good, of course, is not having to worry about the bills, okay? For those who are in major seminary or in pre-theology, ACA covers 100% of that stage of formation, okay? For college seminarians, we do encourage them to pay their own way or to get loans. And then the deal is supposed to be, when they get to the end, when they are ordained, that we can pay off those loans. That's the deal, okay? And so, you guys don't let me forget that. I gotta make sure I'm doing that, okay? There's a lot of details to being vocation director, and that's why I rely very heavily on Father Michael and on Corey, because there's a lot of details, and every person's story is so different. And I feel bad because I only get to know a little bit of each person's story, because I work with so many men. And, I get to know each person's just a little bit of their story. Now, some I'm fortunate to know a little better, like Daryl Segura. He's from Raton, and I was assigned there as a pastor. And so I got to know him pretty well while I was a pastor there. But, some of these new guys, we got a new guy just starting right now. His name is Franklin. He just came with me from the airport, so let's give him a hand. Now, you may say, now Franklin is going to have to go for 8 years of seminary. Well, maybe not so fast. You see, he's already studied philosophy. And he already has an STB in theology. So he already has quite a lot. And so, there's somebody else like that, Anthony, okay? There's another one, Anthony. Anthony, stand up too. Anthony came to us in the same way. Now, these guys already did a lot of studying in other seminaries, and they come to us, and then we say, well, what are we going to do? Well, we still ask that they study with us for at least 2 years, okay? At least 2 years. And then we leave it in God's hands. It's in God's timing. For every individual, it's in God's timing. And so it just depends on what an individual brings, okay? So a typical track, if you will, is if somebody would come from high school. Okay, the pressure's on, right? President of the high school. I should be telling all these young men at St. Pius starting next week, you should be a priest, okay? And so I'm going to start trying to work on those guys that I know have a vocation. And so if they do that, if they say yes to the Lord and enter college seminary right out of high school, then they're looking at about 9 years, okay? That's a long time to study, because that's 4 years of college seminary, plus also 4 years of major seminary, and we also have now a pastoral year. And you may say to yourself, well, isn't that pastoral year a waste of time? Isn't that just kind of just sitting around doodling and doing nothing? Well, actually, this was something that was near and dear to the Archbishop's heart. Archbishop Wester was very interested in starting the pastoral year. And before it was available, of course, if a seminarian asked for it. And I'm grateful to Deacon Joe, for example. He had asked for a pastoral year, and he used it to great effect. He used it very well and learned a lot of things during that year. Now, that was before it was required. And now it's becoming the regular track, as it were, okay? This year, Jordan Sanchez was on a pastoral year, and he was at Santa Maria de la Paz in Santa Fe. Where's Jordan at? Oh, there he is. Okay, there's Jordan. Hi, Jordan. And there's a reason for this pastoral year. And the reason is that seminary is going to teach you a lot about, say, theology, okay? You're going to learn a lot about theology. You're going to learn a lot about philosophy. But the pastoral year gives you a different perspective. It lets you to see how this really applies in a parish, and it allows you to find out a little bit more about the art of pastoring. Because pastor of a parish is an art. It's not a science. And the only way you can learn art is by studying at the feet of a master, okay? It's kind of like a painting. You know, in the old days, when somebody was studying to be a painter, they would study under a master. And the master painter would be doing his master art, but there would be a lot of apprentices studying under him. And they would learn how to paint at the foot of the master. And they would, yes, pick up some of his techniques and some of his methods. And that's the idea. Because when they come out of seminary, then they are that much more ready to be a pastor themselves. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's the global view. Now, how is it working practically? Well, I'm going to let these guys tell me over this retreat, okay? They're going to say, Father, we got to make some changes. Or this worked well, or this could be improved, or those kinds of things, because it's a work in progress. This is still something that is new. And so this year, we're going to have 5 men on a pastoral year. And so we are still learning how this goes. But the advantage is that we're going to have 5 men back here working in the Archdiocese of Santa Fe, maybe helping teach some classes, or helping with various aspects of the ministry in that particular parish. You know, not just being a glorified altar server for a whole year. These are the kinds of things that a seminarian can pick up in a parish during this coming year, because there will be situations where you wonder, how is the pastor going to handle this? And you learn how the pastor handles it because you're a part of it. And hopefully, if I'm doing this right, the pastors will allow the seminarians to sit in on the meetings where there's a pastoral council meeting, for example, or a finance council meeting, for example, or some sort of planning meeting, or even having a role with planning the Triduum, or maybe even being in charge of the Triduum, or, things like that. These are all different aspects of what you can encounter on a pastoral year. So it's a work in progress. It's still being formulated as we do it. But the idea is that they are ready to hit the ground running once they're ordained, okay? And, I'm still learning after 9 years of being a priest. I can't tell you that I think I have it all figured out. I don't. I'm still learning every day. And that is the truth. And I'm also learning a lot by watching each one of you that came here tonight. You guys are an inspiration to me. And I know there's challenges right now. I know that there's negative headlines, and I know that there's been scandalous priest behavior over the years. And yet you still support what the mission is of the ACA. Because without you, we can do nothing. And I don't want to put you on the same level as the Holy Trinity. But at the same time, we do rely on your support. Thank you for supporting these men. And thank you for being such loyal supporters at a time of real challenge for our diocese. But I look at it this way. It's like a rose bush. When I had my first assignment as a seminarian, I went down to Berlin. And I was down there with Father Steve Schultz. And he had a rose bush. And he told me to trim it. So I said, well, I know how my mom used to trim it. And I just cut it back all the way. And he was like, you killed my rose bush. And I was like, no, Father. I just pruned it. And afterwards, it made a beautiful rose bush. And so this is a time of pruning for the church. It is a time of pruning. It's a time of pruning. And wait, just wait. In a few years, you will see the flourishing that follows. God bless you all.